Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today I want to answer a question that came in from a viewer the other night in my live chat that I didn't get a chance to answer. We ran out of time, we were talking about other things, and by the way, we do live chats every night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Monday and Wednesday when they're at 5 p.m. Pacific time. If you want to come in, ask me questions, suggest topics, just talk to other gun guys in the live chat, or maybe even call me out on something if you think I'm wrong about something. That's why we do Spank the Yank. So if you think I'm wrong, I've said something stupid, whatever, come in and let me know. That's what I'm there for. So I'm accessible if people want to challenge me. I always answer challenges when someone challenges me on something I said. I don't hide behind my comment section, my moderators, whatever. I'm accessible. So like I was saying though, I got a question that I didn't have a chance to answer in the chat. This question was, and it was because we were talking about the P320 issues that have been in the news lately. They said, are striker-fired guns inherently more dangerous than other types of guns? And are they just too dangerous to carry? Well, to answer the first part of that question, yes, they're definitely more dangerous than other types of guns. Other types of guns have a lot more safety precautions. Striker-fired guns are meant to be able to be fired quickly and repeatedly. They're duty weapons usually. So a lot of the steps to getting it to that point where it is operable have been removed. And when you remove steps, you make something simpler. And when something's simpler, there's more of a chance of something going wrong. So yes, they are more dangerous than like a double action, single action gun that has a really heavy first pull. And you have to cock that hammer if you want that light pull. There's a little bit of a safety there in that heavy trigger. It's less safe than guns that have manual safeties. Because if you have a manual safety on a gun, that's clearly safer than a gun that just has a ready-to-go trigger. So yes, striker-fired guns are inherently more dangerous than a lot of other types of guns. That's what they're designed to be. They're designed to be quicker and therefore a little more risky. Now, are they too dangerous to carry? Well, no, of course not. If you carry it properly, you do the right things, you don't behave irresponsibly or negligently, they're fine. Keep them in the holster when you're not using them, fully holstered. Make sure they're safely stored away in your holster when you're not using it. Make sure there's no other things that could interfere with that gun or that holster on your person. And don't do things like slam into other people like that cop did whose 320 went off and get your gun hooked on someone else's duty belt while it's not properly holstered. If he hadn't have done those negligent acts, that gun wouldn't have went off. So that gun would have been safe, just like any other striker-fired gun is safe while it's in your holster. I have never, ever seen a gun of any type, and especially not a striker-fired gun, because those are the ones people pay the most attention to because they think they're dangerous. Never seen one go off when properly holstered and without someone else acting from outside and pulling the trigger. You know, there are rare occasions like an MRI machine yanks a gun across the room and completely destroys it and makes it fire. But those are so few and far between, and those are anomalies. I've never seen a gun just, and that's being acted upon by an outside force. I've never seen a gun just sitting in the holster fire. Something like this Glock right here. Never seen it just go off on its own. Even if it wasn't in a holster, if I got this gun ready, was loaded and sat it on the table, it ain't ever going to go off on its own. It could sit there for years and it wouldn't go off until something else made it go off. Usually a finger, or, you know, in some cases, a piece of clothing or something on a duty belt, something hitting that trigger, or a holster hitting the trigger when you're reholstering it. That's when striker-fireds become the most dangerous. That's when you're actually reholstering them, drawing them, when you're having to put them in your hand with nothing between that gun going off and not going off other than your trigger finger. You not touching that trigger and not allowing anything else to touch that trigger. That's the only thing that stops it from going off when you're handling it. So that's when they become dangerous, which is why it is extremely stupid when you see these guys out there, you know, these tactitards doing drills with appendix carry guns with like a Glock where they'll draw, shoot a couple of times and then slam it back in the holster, run, draw, and shoot a couple more times. every time they do that, they're risking blowing their fucking balls off. Now, the chances of it happening are slim, but how big of a chance of blowing your balls off is too big of a chance. So that's why I always say you shouldn't carry appendix carry with any gun. The risk just isn't worth it. But with a striker-fired gun, you especially shouldn't. About the only way you can make a striker-fired gun that doesn't have a manual safety safe for appendix carry, or safer, it's always you're dealing with safer when you're dealing with guns. The only way you can make it safer to carry is carry without one in the chamber. I don't know about you, but I think that puts me at more of a disadvantage than having it on my hip with one in the chamber. So it isn't worth it in the end. And that's because of that striker-fired mechanism. Like I said, it is meant to be fired quickly with as few steps needed as possible. And that makes it a little bit more sensitive to negligence. So if you're going to carry a striker-fired gun, be very careful with it. Use a proper holster. And not only use a proper holster, but use that holster properly. Make sure your gun is fully seated. If it's meant to be used with a retention strap, etc., if you're not using that gun, make sure the retention strap is in place. Because here's the thing, a lot of these holsters that have the retention shrouds and straps, etc., if you don't have them on and you're tussling around, they pop right out of the holster. That strap is meant to hold it in there. If you're not using it, a lot of the times the holster itself doesn't have enough retention to overcome the inertia of the gun itself bouncing around. So if it does have a strap, use that strap if it has a retention system. Get a holster, in my opinion, I like holsters that have a good amount of retention in the holster itself and they don't need a strap. But if I have a holster with a strap, you got to use it because the holster itself is not designed to be used without the strap. So that's generalization there, but you know what I'm saying there. So not only use the proper holster, but use it properly and be aware that the only thing between you and that gun going off is your ability to keep your finger off the trigger and you being fully aware of everything else that could go wrong and avoiding those situations. That's what you have to do with a striker-fired gun because, like I said, it is easier to fire than other guns like double-action, single-action guns with safeties. Now, that doesn't mean a gun with a manual safety is always going to be super safe because all it takes is human error. You forget to put the safety on and you go to holster your 1911 with the 1.5 pound trigger and a stiff breeze hits it and it goes off because you forgot to put on the safety or you accidentally released the safety. It's human error that causes these problems. The gun itself, a striker-fired gun sitting on a table, side by side with a double-action, single-action, a gun with the safety on, etc., all of them, if you don't touch them, none of them are going to go off. They're all equally safe. It's us. We're the problem. When you bring the human element in it and cause problems, that's when you start having negligent discharges, when we get careless. And since you can't control everything about every situation, since the striker-fired gun is more susceptible to negligence, it's a little more dangerous when it's in the hands of people. The gun itself isn't dangerous, it's the people handling it. And I think pretty much every time you see one of these cases of, oh, the gun just went off, blah, 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 when you know the truth, someone made a mistake and their ego doesn't want to let them admit they did it. Because a gun going off on its own would require some extraordinary things to happen. And when something extraordinary is claimed, well, then I think you would need extraordinary evidence. And if you don't have extraordinary evidence, then the most likely explanation is the real explanation. And in the case of striker-fired guns, it's almost always, I would even say always, mathematically, the fault of the person handling the gun, not the gun.